A way of framing it is if we take a look at the canonical formulation of paradigms from Kuhn. He uses the term paradigm shift, but what he actually describes are paradigm catastrophes, where the shift from one to the other has a characteristic of being rather inelegant. And given the magnitude and scope of the paradigm shift we're finding ourselves in, we might want to actually find a way to cause it to be a shift. One is that the existing institutions, which command effectively all resource allocation choices, typically can only resource that which is legible to themselves. A paradigm, of course, is coming from the interior, from the mindset of those who are running it, as much as it's coming from the exterior, the institutions that reproduce it. And the mindset can only produce epicycles. It can only continue to explicate the paradigm that it's running in its own interior. Or double down, or actually put more intensity. And any effort to escape it from the mindset perspective doesn't get resource allocation or legibility from the institutional perspective. So you get yourself caught into a loop. And then the last piece, from the domain of evolutionary theory, there's two fundamental strategies, one called hill climbing and one called valley crossing. And a primary problematic of why paradigms get stuck is that precisely the success of a paradigm produces a selection for hill climbing dynamics all the way down to the individual level, and a tendency to extinguish or eliminate valley crossing dynamics. So can we do this consciously? Can we, perhaps for the first time in human history, understand a meta theory of paradigmatic shift and therefore endeavor to make it happen elegantly? We are running a very complex system, the most complex effort developed in human history. And we have to actually keep energy and food and everything else moving well. And that's a lot of work. This cannot be a revolutionary interruption. We cannot have a breakdown of the current system beyond a relatively trivial amount. We must be conscious of the fact that we will too often find ourselves in an adversarial relationship with legacy institutions, meaning we're not legible to legacy institutions. We don't fit the model. We don't fit the pattern. We have to find a way to navigate that reality. Let me outline three thematic principles that I believe is a good way to compress the operating methodology. Restoration of our indigenous capacities, the techniques of navigation in liminality, and to the degree to which we can do so, can we identify or sketch out something like a map that can bring us to the future? We actually have a decent amount of slack in the current institutions because of how dysfunctional they are. And it is plausible that if the most competent people can simply be liberated from dysfunction to do their job, they could do so. And we could hold a decent amount of what we need through ordinary human virtue. We want to focus on upregulation of people who are currently holding important elements competently with integrity, and then link them together in larger and larger structures with mutual support. All right, the lack of access to human and material resources is a principal reason why paradigm shift is typically paradigm catastrophe. And we can ask the French aristocracy of 1787 about this question. And my experience has been that it is very, very difficult to get people who currently are responsible for resource allocation to engage in any form of resource allocation in the context of novel paradigms. From my point of view, the most likely location here are new forms of collective intelligence. And a long time ago, Jim Rutt and I actually put together a formula on a whiteboard that pointed out that roughly 300 of the right people integrated in the right way could prove decisive. And this is something that I've been calling the neo-neocortex, which is effectively a distributed network of individuals who are operating from a relatively robust instantiation of the new paradigm, but have developed skillfulness of synergizing with and in support of the legacy institutions. The neocortex did not replace the cortex. It simply created a paper-thin layer on top of it that integrated with and upregulated its functionality. So these are two distinct elements that I think are both necessary in relationship with the existing institutional structures.